History is written in ink, but some of its darkest chapters were carved in shadow through the most brutal punishments ever devised by humanity. For centuries, justice was not just about law but about fear. Today, we journey into the past to witness the terrifying methods of ancient retribution. Our first stop takes us to the infamous Tower of London, a place where the stones themselves seem to echo with the cries of the forgotten. Beneath the waterline sat a cell known as the Rat Dungeon. It was a dark, damp pit that invited the river's most unwelcome inhabitants. As the tide rose, so did the water level in the cell. In the absolute pitch black, prisoners would hear the scratching of thousands of claws. There was no escape from the swarming rats. They would emerge from the sewers, drawn to the helpless figure trapped in the rising tide. From the damp dungeons of London, we move to the cold mechanical precision of the medieval torture chamber, and its most famous engine, the rack. The rack was a deceptively simple wooden frame. Using a system of rollers and levers, it was designed to pull the human body apart. As the torturers turned the levers, the ropes would tighten. Every click of the gear meant more pressure, more tension, and unimaginable agony. The psychological toll was as great as the physical. The sound of stretching wood and clicking metal often broke a prisoner before their body did. But the horrors were not limited to land. On the high seas, 17th-century sailors faced a punishment that turned the ocean itself into a weapon. Keelhauling was reserved for the most serious crimes at sea. A sailor would be bound with heavy ropes and cast overboard into the churning water. The victim was dragged underneath the ship's massive keel. There, they faced the razor-sharp barnacles that encrusted the wood like jagged glass. If the sailor didn't drown, the jagged shells would tear through flesh. It was a terrifying gauntlet from which few emerged unscathed. While the West used machines and the sea, the East utilized the sheer power of nature in the form of the mighty war elephant. Elephant crushing was a common method of execution in South and Southeast Asia. These massive beasts were trained to be precise executioners. Controlled by a mahout, the elephant would stand over the condemned. Its sheer scale made the prisoner look like a mere shadow on the ground. At a single command, the elephant's heavy foot would descend. It was a display of absolute power, ending a life in a single crushing moment. As we look back at these dark eras, we see a slow transition from cruelty to modern justice and the recognition of human rights. History is often written by the victors, but beneath the glory of ancient empires lies a shadow cast by the most brutal forms of justice. For centuries, legal systems relied not just on confinement, but on the psychological and physical terror of public execution to maintain order. Up next, we will delve into the darkest chapters of our past to examine the most horrifying punishments ever devised by human civilization. Perhaps no punishment is more synonymous with sheer terror than impalement, a method used to break the spirit of entire armies. Commonly associated with Vlad the Impaler, this method was designed as a gruesome form of psychological warfare, visible from miles. The stakes were often crafted from rough-hewn timber, carefully positioned to ensure the ordeal lasted as long as possible under the burning sun. Moving to ancient Rome, we find a punishment so specific and strange it was reserved only for the most heinous of family crimes. The ponicole, or punishment of the sack, was the traditional Roman penalty for parricide, the killing of one's own parent. The condemned was sewn into a leather bag along with 4 animals, a dog, a rooster, a viper, and a monkey. This chaotic assembly was then cast into the sea, ensuring the perpetrator was denied a burial on land, forever erased from the earth. In the damp, lightless dungeons of the medieval world, another form of terror took root, exploiting the primal fears of the prisoner. Rat torture was a method of extreme psychological and physical duress, often utilizing a simple earthenware bowl and the source of heat. As the bowl was heated, the animals inside would grow desperate, seeking any means of escape from the rising temperature. Historical records even suggest the development of specialized devices, used in cold interrogation rooms to break the strongest of wills. As we look back on these methods, we see a reflection of the era's beliefs regarding sin, justice, and the power of the state. While these punishments have long been abolished, they remain a chilling reminder of the extremes of human legal history. And finally, we will explore the most brutal and horrifying punishments ever devised by man. Our journey begins in medieval Europe with a practice known as gibbeting. It was a punishment that continued long after the spark of life had left the condemned. The gibbet was an iron cage, custom fitted to the prisoner's body. Suspended high above the crossroads, the victim was left as a grim warning to all who passed by. Exposed to the scorching sun, freezing rain, and scavenging birds, the body would remain for years. It was a visual testament to the absolute power of the law. Traveling further back in time to the heart of ancient Persia, we find a method so ingenious in its cruelty it remains a subject of morbid fascination: scaphism. The victim was placed inside a hollowed-out log or between two boats, with only their head and limbs exposed. They were then forcibly fed a mixture of milk and honey. This sweet coating served a dark purpose, attracting swarms of insects in the stagnant heat. It was a slow, agonizing process where nature itself became the executioner. Days would turn into weeks under the blistering sun. The psychological toll was as immense as the physical one, leaving the victim trapped in a living nightmare. In the depths of medieval castles, another horror awaited: the oubliette. Its name comes from the French word oublier, meaning to forget. It was a narrow, vertical shaft, barely wide enough for a person to stand or sit. Once lowered inside, the prisoner was effectively erased from the world above. There was no light, no companionship, and no hope of escape. The only sounds were the scurrying of rats in the shadows and the distant echo of the castle. These punishments remind us of the lengths humanity has gone to in the pursuit of order and vengeance. History's shadows are long, and its lessons are often painful. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history's darkest chapters. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the past.